Hey everybody, one of the things that's been keeping me regular these days is going on YouTube and constantly watching videos of people playing Bloodborne on actual emulation, okay? So every single day I'm blessed to see that literally people are uploading videos where I'm not joking with you, they're fighting the final boss to Bloodborne, not just on a regular computer, no, they actually are firing this up on a goddamn Steam Deck. So yeah, to show you ladies and gentlemen, I'm pretty excited. Now, over the last couple weeks, if not like 2 months, I basically have been covering the meteoric massive rise of development in Shat PS4, a emulator for the PlayStation 4 console on PC. Now, the funny thing about this entire emulation video for me is we literally saw the game running with a red screen, barely loading up the menu, to getting into the game with nothing loaded texture-wise, to what I'm about to show you today where the game is running. Basically, I would say like 2 years worth of progress in the span of 2 months, okay? So really wild story. So obviously I've got the Shad PS4 emulator right here. So ladies and gentlemen, in order to get this to function, what I needed to do is actually have like a version of Shad PS4 on, a special build. And to understand, on GitHub, underneath the Shat PS4 emulation branch, you can download specific versions that have Bloodborne fixes, right? It kind of reminds me of the early days of when PlayStation 3 emulation was really taking off. Metal Gear Solid 4 needed like a special build, like the Ratch Costo build, or, any other developer's version, just to get the game to actually function. And even now, it needs specific fixes and, memory hacks in order to get things not crashing. So obviously, Bloodborne has a similar thing, so I decided to get that. I got kernel files, like system files from my actual hacked PlayStation 4, so no piracy here today, backed up a copy of Bloodborne that I own, and most importantly, I actually went to the modding community. Yes, there is an actual active modding community for Bloodborne. Like, we are looking at 84 results. So to remind you, this game is such a popular missed opportunity by Sony that on the PC platform, for a game that is an emulated product running within an alpha build of an actual PlayStation 4 emulation, that has a modding community. So yeah, Sony, missed opportunity right there, but we'll get to all that later. I don't want to keep you away from the meat of this video too long, so I'm going to cut the yapping and fire up Shat PS4. And again, to give another preface over here, I've got a few mods into the game. So those mods, in particular, ladies and gentlemen, are visual tweaks, which optimize portions of the Bloodborne map, so things load faster. I believe it actually culls some of those crashes that kept happening. And again, another mod that I had was special effects restoration, so this replaces or even restores certain special effects that normally aren't visible in the emulation. And of course, one mod that I think is a little bit contentious is a reshade, just to add missing effects via post-processing, but one I'm excited to show you. So I'm going to, again, go to the Shat PS4 page here, the actual program, fire it up, and here you can see I've got Bloodborne and PT. We'll get to PT later. But again, I got Bloodborne, hit the double click, and ladies and gentlemen, it is ready to go. So here I've got the actual game functioning, and again, if I can just listen to the audio, yeah, it's working. So yeah, the audio I have patched up with a pretty controversial mod, just because there's decrypted usage of Bloodborne files, but again, I'm gonna load the game over here and just fire this up and get into the actual game. So if you're noticing really quickly, it's kind of got this VHS vibe for anybody picking up on it. So generally speaking, with Reshade, what the actual team has done is add post-processing effects like HDR, ambient occlusion, FXAA, sharpening filters to the actual game right here. I hate features like chromatic aberration, but I actually think it really adds a lot of look back to Bloodborne, because chromatic aberration was a pretty heavy used feature there. So if you're looking at the actual game, one good shot is right here. Pay attention to the actual window to the left of my character's head. If I turn the reshade off, you can see that this is what Bloodborne looks like on the actual emulator, just without any reshade fixes. Adding this brings some of that shimmer back, that chromatic aberration. The lighting is more mapped to be popping. And importantly, this SFX restoration pack adds light around certain objects. So if you're playing this game, you don't actually miss those objects anymore. You actually see them. So some effects like this lantern have been replaced by this effect right here, which again, underneath the reshade, there's a lot more body added once you get some of those post-processing solutions. So I'm going to actually start playing this game and show you how it runs. Because again, if Sony's not willing to make a PC port, leave it to the community to build their own port. So one good example of like the VHS effect that I'm talking about is if you look at the very top right where the blood echoes indication is, you can see that, well, first off, let me just purchase some of these blood vials so I can actually play the game with some health. But if you look very carefully at like the numbers, adding a reshade gives it sort of that like VHS, kind of like almost a CRT blur. So yeah, I wanted to get some of these just health items real quick. Obviously, I'm running cheats here just to show you things quickly or just to make things a little bit easier for recording in time. But yeah, there's cheats, full mod support, obviously, and patches. The same patches that run on PlayStation 4 itself. So if you're looking real carefully at this, man, like, guys, 2 months ago, textures on these characters weren't loading, bro. Like, look at some of the torches on these characters. Like, so you can see the actual effect mod didn't bring back the lit torches that had their own little special effect. It's because it just doesn't work on Shat PS4. But what's happened is they've been brought back kind of just through a patchwork fix. Now, obviously, as this emulator matures, that fix shouldn't even be required. Ideally, for emulation, you want to run a video game and you want to make sure all the effects are rendered properly. Hence, that's how video games end up getting that playable tag in an emulator, when every aspect of the video game is, again, completely playable. So here you see me running through, and if you notice like that shimmer, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I haven't upgraded the resolution. And I think I have the 720p patch, but that's also because I'm running the game at 60 frames per second, and it is a night and day difference in like controls. So alright, we're getting through the enemies over here. We're just going to get up the old Cleric Beast battle, which is not too far off. But given that I've died, you can actually see like they have an interpretation of the fog wall effect, which I believe was missing last time. So if you look in the distance past the large enemy, you should be able to see like this game's version of a fog wall, which doesn't appear to be rendered, actually. Doesn't appear to be rendered. But here we've got the actual enemy, and we've got the Cleric Beast, so we're going to get into a fight with him. Dude, comparing it to the last time, even like a month ago, there were texture works, there were pieces that were just not functional. Like, the fact that we've got all this shit running like this is just so gorgeous to see. Oh. Ooh, buddy, back off. There we go. I just need to knock this dude down. But yeah, like comparing it to like about a month ago, the actual game that we played was still a night and day difference. Like compared to just any other effect, what's also important is like there's two big fixes that I really think were warranting like me making another video. Now those two fixes in particular ends up being the shadows that are casted around my character. So if you were able to pick up on that, that's one of the big fixes I noticed. Obviously, the texture work is itself a big fix, the fact that they're rendering properly, it seems. The other big thing that I really wanted to discuss in this was obviously memory management. Now, last time we covered this, Shat PS4 was using like 6 to 7 gigabytes of my actual memory. Because of the memory leak fix, the game consumes no more than 1.5 gigabytes of RAM on my system, which is pretty goddamn impressive. Not only has this left to be a smoother game, it can run on more hardware, and ultimately I've seen far less crashes in this entire experience as I played on this patch. Just gotta pay some attention to the game here, actually during a boss battle, so... Again, dude, compared to like how I used to play this game, like, 2 months ago, the thing about this version is like you can even see that the performance, like the frame rate, the stuttering is basically non-existent. And, it's not that I've seen this character a bunch of times. It's just like things are working a lot smoother. So literally, like, for this one game, the people working on it have made some pretty massive improvements, which by any stretch of the imagination, if this was another emulator project, this would be huge information. So here we go, we got one more down there. Greedy. Oh, fuck, got greedy then. But at least that's the thing about Bloodborne is, like, even if you get greedy, if you're aggressive enough and you know your timings, you can still get back on your feet even without popping like a heal. So here it is. Beat the cleric beast. And one thing also to notice is as I'm fighting this, dude, even the like even all the blood effects seem to be rendering out properly. So here it is. We've got the sword hunter badge. So we see the item over here. And if you're looking actually very carefully, so if you see around the one character right there, like the dead NPC up there, the dead character, you see a little white glowing icon. So without this fix, you wouldn't necessarily see this. So it's actually kind of imperative, at least for the game, like right now, you know, while you're making it to the end. Which again, if you're going to play this, kind of play it like a alternative side remaster of the game that looks a little bit different. But again, yeah, if you're actually playing this game for the first time like this, then you're going to need some of these mods to make your actual like first time experience not completely confusing. So because you need to know where obviously in a Souls game certain weapons are at. So here I've got the actual I've got the doll so I can actually level up a little bit. So again, like, playing this version of the game and actually seeing things load up properly is just insane to see. Like, by now, I probably would have at least crashed a minimum of 4 times trying to load things in between each other. But yeah, for a lot of people who are into it, Bloodborne seems to actually work. Now, the one mod that I wanted to talk about that was a little bit controversial was the mod that brings the audio back. So if you guys are paying attention to this, then you know that compared to the first time we ever covered this, like, obviously the audio never worked. So now, you've got actual fucking audio in the game. But in order to do that, there was apparently some level of, like, going into the actual game's audio files, like the encrypted files, and decrypting them, which poses a pretty legal issue. Like, you can't distribute that in any way because it would be illegal, because you've violated a DRM. But the other thing is, you have also distributed actual copies or files from the game itself. So I saw it uploaded on Nexus Mods, which I was a little bit surprised because I considered that since it used like actual assets, it probably would have been removed a lot quicker. So you can see like actual items on these characters. And again, because like certain effects are still missing, like shadows kind of work, kind of. You are missing some effects. Like if you disable this this ENB series, if you notice, like open it up real quick, there's parts of this that sometimes look a little bit worse. Like with this series, you've seen like around my head, there's like this axis of webs, which I don't know if that's like some casting or something, like an actual visual effect that clearly doesn't work. I'm just wondering what it's for, but it's more pronounced with having this reshade put in. If you want like a more lore-friendly way to level up, I think one of the mods was actually somebody bringing back the Cum Dungeon, Chalice Dungeon. And if you don't know what that is, basically it's a dungeon where like you stay there for like 3 seconds and you get like a shit ton of souls out of it, and it allows you to like level up really quickly on like the console. So you kind of like skip, you know, a whole chunk of that grind. But yeah, this is effectively Bloodborne running pretty close, I would say, in approximation to the core game. Now, obviously, we've got a ways to go. And ultimately, you want to see the emulator be more accurate, and obviously not just a Bloodborne piece of software. But the thing that's interesting about this, and I'm going to save properly, because as you should with Bloodborne, without anything corrupted, just exit, save. Hopefully I don't lose this in any update of the emulator. So if we close this off right now, one of the things that's left talking about is when you look at the history of Bloodborne PC, it's not that people behind the project don't want it. I mean, there's literally talks of Miyazaki wanting to bring this over because he knows people want Bloodborne on the PC. It's just Sony doesn't let it happen. And it's the same thing with like Demon Souls, like the remake of that. It's still also not on PC. So again, Sony is comfortable remaking Horizon Zero Dawn, also delisting it and, you know, putting up new versions so they make more money out of digital copies, which shows you why we still need physical media in today's day and age, decided to remake that game. So they care more about the Horizon series. Bloodborne is nothing but an afterthought to Sony. Sony, I don't know if they're doing proper market research or somebody genuinely hates the project, because the amount of people on the internet who want this game natively on PC is insane. I mean, like I said, there's already an insane amount of modding support for a video game that's in an alpha emulator at this moment in time. So, is there going to be Bloodborne anniversary, 10th anniversary? Like, is there going to be like a remaster that comes out? Regardless of all the cope, I really don't think Sony is going to put any effort to it. They might acknowledge it, maybe with a tweet. But again, this is a game that's locked to the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4. And even in that case, there's no patch that runs the game at 60 frames per second or, upscales the game to like 1440p or even a 4K output. It's just one of those things where they could kind of give us a little patch, a little of what we wanted. But at this moment in time, I think it's too little too late. I think Sony realizes that they fucked up pretty immensely. And even if they do announce an actual, Bloodborne game to come out for PC, I think there's going to be a lot of people, me included, who out of spite will just continue emulating the project. Now, one of the things that people talk about is eventually, will this be cease and desisted by Sony? And the thing is, I don't know. Like when Bloodborne Kart was a thing, I believe they had to change the name of that IP. And that literally had to be because companies are protective of their IP, obviously. But yeah, even in situations, dude, like that, obviously Sony's going to jump in and restrict if Shadbase, uses Bloodborne, maybe in their advertising for the emulator, or if it comes out that maybe there are actual Bloodborne files being distributed in some of these builds, then it could be exclusively bad for people there. So copyright, again, when it comes to purely emulator-related things, Sony really doesn't have a claim over it. They've went to court over it before, and they've lost. But I don't know. Times be changing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if Sony isn't going to do it, the fans are going to do it. And ultimately, all that's happened is Sony has missed out on a chunk of money that they could have easily printed if they just gave an entire community one game. One game out of all the library they've been given up. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like it if you dislike it, I am out.